A very warm welcome to the fourth and the last one of GEM's webinars for 2024 in association with the Older Drivers Forum. There's going to be quite a sort of festive season feeling to our conversation this afternoon, but we'll still have the usual blend of top tips and some road safety advice to make sure that your journeys this Christmas will be truly safe. That's whether you're just driving to the end of the road to visit neighbours or maybe going much further afield. And at 3 o'clock, we'll be announcing one very lucky viewer who will be the winner of our absolutely lovely Christmas hamper. I'll tell you a little bit more about the quiz and how to enter it later in the programme. First of all, let me tell you who our guests are today. We've got Lee Puffett, who is the chairman of GEM Executive Council. Heidi Duffy from the National Young Rider Forum. Alan Wakely, transport historian, who will have a very large stocking full of the most wonderful winter memories, extreme winter conditions of going back right into the 1950s. David Motton is the road test editor for GEM's monthly magazine, Good Motoring Magazine, and Alan Hiscox is the safety director for the British Horse Society. Oh, and by the way, we've got quite a few videos for you as well. And it's most important that when we show you the videos, you watch those really carefully because they're going to be part of our competition. And we're going to include some spectacular snow and ice driving on a disused airfield in Finland. And there's going to be a couple of our most recent blue light aware clips. And here's a hint for you. If you want to win this Christmas hamper, as I said, you really have to pay full attention to those Christmas videos. Now, I'm going to start with a question for everyone. We're going to have sort of fun questions all the way through our programme. I'm going to introduce all our guests today. I'm going to ask each of them in turn if they briefly tell me just 3 things about themselves. 2 things can be true, and 1 has got to be false. And then later on, when I talk to them a little bit more in detail, I'm going to ask them which was the false answer, and it'll be fun. This is not part of the quiz, by the way, but this will be fun for you to try and guess as viewers to see if you can guess which is that false answer. So let's start with Lee Puffett. Lee, 3 things about you, please, that we don't know.
I'm passionate about classic cars and have owned many and own an MGF. I once got told off by the late, great Jeff Capes at Crystal Palace Sports Arena for pulling somersaults on a high jump mat. And I own a Belgian warm blood horse called Apache.
Wow. Okay, Heidi, your turn. 3 answers, please. 1 false, 1.
Yes, so I currently have 3 different jobs. I learnt to do ballet when I was 60 years of age, and I am the proud owner of a Blue Peter badge.
Ooh, I think I'd like to believe the last one. Right, let's have Alan Wakely, please. Alan.
I once played lacrosse at Cheshire, unusual for a man, but my girlfriend was a Cheshire County player at the time. My son is a port enthusiast to a very high level, so much so that he's now become quite a close friend of the Portuguese ambassador. And my last interview for a full-time job prior to retirement was conducted by a panel of 16 nuns.
Interesting. David, what are your 3 answers, please?
I once tried and failed to organise a booze up in a brewery. I've stayed in a caravan in the middle of winter north of the Arctic Circle. And I once travelled the full length of the south coast all the way from Kent down to Cornwall by bus.
Right, thank you very much. And lastly, Alan Hiscox, please.
Well, I obviously love riding. The clue's in the name of who I work for. I used to play the guitar in a punk rock band, and I love cricket and still do.
Right, thank you all very much. Very interesting answers there. And as I said, when I come to talk to you individually, I'm going to ask you to give me the false answer and we'll see just how many our viewers get right. First of all, I'm going to come and talk to Lee Puffett, of course, to ask him about GEM. And we'll continue our festive questions as we go along. Lee, from GEM, you're very important in the GEM Association. If it's possible, it's been a very, very, very good year for you. I know that. Is it possible in 3 words to just sum up what 2024 has been like for the GEM team?
Yes, it's been a very good year, and I would say the 3 words are awards, progression, and development.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit there on the GEM key achievements this last year?
Yeah, it's been a very good year for us. Very proud of GEM and everything that we've achieved. And actually, I'd like to say well done and thank you to all the GEM staff who put in so much work, because they really do care for our members. We've achieved the Which recommendation for breakdown cover for 2024, coming in first place, which is absolutely fantastic. We were highly commended in the Personal Finance Awards. We were awarded a contribution award at the Road Safety Great Britain annual event. We sponsored the Young Driver Focus event. We also are involved with something that's very important, which is the Older Driver Forums as well. And last but not least, we found our way onto Jeremy Vine's show on BBC Two, giving our expert opinion.
Fantastic. I certainly know about the GEM recovery because I've had to be recovered a couple of times and they've been absolutely brilliant. They've just arrived in such quick time. It's been amazing. I know you've had to put your prices up this year for the first time in 6 years. I'm wondering how your members reacted to that. Did they understand why you had to do it and did they accept it?
Well, it was a difficult position to be in because of inflationary measures that were, and obviously people were claiming more as well. And so with the price increase of the overheads and also with people claiming more, the insurance premium has to rise. So we thought we'd be open. We'd tell our members exactly what it was that was causing the increase. And we put a panel in our magazine to explain exactly. Our treasurer explained everything in there. And we explained it clearly in our renewal letters. And I'm really pleased to say that our members, we didn't increase the membership, only the breakdown. We managed to keep the membership as it was. And our renewal retention rate has been excellent. And I think that's because people like the GEM product, they like the service, and they also like the foundation upon which GEM was built through the company of veteran motorists.
Yeah. How do you plan to build on this year's successes in the coming year in 2025?
Well, what we're looking to do is we're looking to introduce new products for our members, so new member benefits. Watch this space and we'll introduce some of those. And also we're looking to introduce new products for next year, because we're quite aware that with the cost of living that not everybody will possibly want personal cover anymore. So we're going to introduce new cover levels, which our members and new members can choose, possibly at a lower price.
Tell me one thing, Lee. I mean, you were created in 1932, if I'm right.
Yep.
You're such a successful organization. And I mention you to every taxi driver I have, all my friends, I say I'm with GEM, and they all go, oh, what's GEM? I mean, I just don't know why people don't know about you.
Well, we have been known. We're sort of a secret, really. And this is when Call Assist, obviously I'm the MD of Call Assist as well. When Call Assist became involved in GEM, that was our project, because we thought that GEM deserved to have much more recognition in the public space. And that's what we've been working on for the past 5 years, is to push GEM and to get it more well known. Obviously, people like your good selves spreading the word. But recently we've seen an increase in new members, and I think it's not just the breakdown cover, but it's also what we stand for in road safety. And we're at the beginning of a new growth stage, and hopefully it will become a well-known brand.
Yeah. Well, I'll go on mentioning you. I assure you every time I sort of hop into a taxi or anywhere and talk about you to friends. Lee, I didn't ask you what was your false answer. You said you love classic cars. I'm going to make a guess. I suspect that's probably right. You were told off by Jeff Capes, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Who's Jeff Capes? She says ignorantly.
Oh, world's strongest man, and he was he was on the shot and discus for, I think it's both those, for the UK.
And you own a horse called Apache. I'm going to say you don't have a horse called Apache.
You're absolutely right.
I got it.
Although I would love to own a horse.
That's right. I'm sure you would. Anyway, we're coming now to another question for everybody. Thank you very much for telling us about GEM and your prospects and hopes and anticipations and everything you're going to do in the coming months. We've got a question too for everyone here, getting into the festive spirit again. We're going to find out now about some memorable Christmas journeys that our guests have made. And I'm going to start with Lee, because you were the last person I was talking to. Lee, a memorable Christmas journey.
Well, I must say that when normally I'm round the local area where all my family are. So I would probably say that it was a ski trip over Christmas that I made, and that was something special to experience it in another country.
Which country was it?
Slovenia.
Oh, that's unusual. Yes, not the usual places that people go. David, a memorable Christmas journey.
There was one Christmas a few years ago now where we were in a hurry to drive up to the in-laws, and getting the children into the car was like herding cats and all that sort of thing. So we were rushing around and then stuck in traffic for ages, and we finally got to the in-laws and we're thinking, right, we can relax now. Christmas has started. And I realized we'd left all the Christmas presents behind. So the next morning I had to turn around and come back again.
How many miles
It
was that?
It was 130 miles or so each way. So
Oh my gosh, oh, that's an awful thing. Okay, I better remember that Christmas. Alan Waitley, a memorable journey, please.
The journey I remember was one my parents took rather than me. They were coming up to visit us. We were in Liverpool, they were in London, and they were coming by train, so it's not, in some senses, gem-related. But I kept on going down to Lime Street Station, and it started snowing and snowed and snowed and snowed. On the train, it eventually sort of ground to a halt somewhere near Leighton Buzzard and stuck there for 2 hours. At the end of which the door at the end of the carriage flew open, and the man came in and said, "Tickets, please." And a wag somewhere halfway down the very disgruntled passenger area said, "Why are we going anywhere?" At which point they all dissolved into laughter, and apparently it turned into a party for the rest of the journey. I carried on going back as we were forced to Lime Street Station, and eventually the announcer said, "A train from London is expected to arrive in about 10 minutes. It was the only one that got there that day, but they'd had a whale of a time.
Well, that sounds fun. I hope there's a few drinks sort of going around as well.
We did one too.
All right. Who's next? That's Alan Hiscox.
Well, my daughters live in Australia, so my first Christmas out there to see my daughters was a very strange journey down to the beach in shorts and t-shirts. And anyone that's spent Christmas in Australia realizes that it is quite a different experience over there. And tinsel and sun, I don't want to upset any Australians, but just doesn't look or feel right.
No, I've always thought that somehow having a Christmas in the sun doesn't feel Christmassy at all, but certainly different. Heidi, last of all, what was your memorable Christmas journey?
Yeah, it was 1985 and I was expecting my first child, and we travelled down to Burford in Oxfordshire for Christmas. And it was down to the Foss Way, through the winding roads, beautiful cosy cottages, all lovely decorated, and it was a very special journey. And it was the last Christmas we had before we had my son.
Oh, right. Well, that's a nice Christmas to remember. So some good memories there, some good memories. Thank you all very much indeed. Now, I'm going to stay with Heidi, because if you're expecting any gift deliveries in the next couple of weeks, or perhaps a takeaway, which you're going to sort of have with family or friends, Heidi Duffy has been coordinating a piece of work sponsored by GEM Charity to reduce the risk that, as happens with young drivers, making these deliveries usually on mopeds. A lot of them have L plates. A lot of them don't speak English as their first language, and quite a number of them are not really very conversed with the highway code. Heidi, is that an accurate picture I'm painting of young drivers on the roads this time of year?
Yes, Valerie, the young riders, and obviously the demand since the pandemic for people to have their meals delivered to them at the home has grown and grown. And it does mean that we have got young motorcyclists out in all weathers, all times of the day and night, delivering food, etc., to places. And sometimes English isn't their first language. They've perhaps grown up in different countries where the road layouts are very different, and they don't have the knowledge of the highway code, rules and regulations that we're all brought up with.
You've made some short videos, and we're going to see one of them in just a moment. Now, are these videos meant to reduce collisions, or is it to stop riders doing dangerous things?
Well, if we do the latter, if we stop some of the riders doing dangerous things and get them to comply with things like traffic lights and keep left bollards, then hopefully they will achieve the first one, which is reducing killed and seriously injured collisions involving them. So one leads to the other. We just want to increase their knowledge by education of everything, things like highway code and road traffic law.
I mean, when I'm thinking or seeing people delivering, they seem to me to be on motorbikes. Yet you're talking about mopeds. Is it sort of young people particularly who use mopeds when they're doing these delivery trips?
Yes, because they've got their L plates on, it normally means that they've just done their CBT. So they can only ride small bikes with a CC of 125 or less. So that's why they've got L plates on. And they're our most inexperienced road users. And it's compounded by the fact that perhaps they're not familiar with the road traffic law, highway code, and the rules and regulations that we stick to every day.
Yeah, very difficult time anyway, driving at Christmas. Now, we're going to take a look at one of the 7 videos that you've made, and this one is about junctions. Let's look at this. That's nice animation, Heidi. I like that very much. So what is it particularly about junctions that they need to know?
Well, it's urban junctions and they're just so busy. There's so much going off. You've got drivers waiting to pull out, drivers pulling in, drivers coming across, and the rider really needs to be observant and make sure he knows or expects what's going to happen at the junction. We have SMIDSy accident, which stands for "Sorry, mate, I didn't see you," which is small sort of comfort if a car driver has pulled out and taken a motorcyclist and knocked them over. So it's all about giving them the key messages, not overtaking at junctions, to keep them safe when they're out in the urban environment.
Now, a most important thing, of course, Heidi, is how on earth are you going to get all these young moped riders to see the videos? Where are
Well,
they going to go to see them?
Yeah, well, we're going to launch a social media campaign in January. Obviously, it's all very busy at the moment. Everybody's rushing around trying to get the shopping done ready for Christmas. So we're going to launch them in January with a social media campaign. We'll be circulating them to the gig economy companies. So the delivery company themselves will share them with them, and also the CBT instructors. They're the people who give the riders their license to actually go out onto the road. So, and it's part of working with them, and they've highlighted these issues that we've produced these films with the help from Jem.
Yeah, excellent. I do hope they, achieve the success that you're hoping for.
Thank
Heidi, I didn't ask you about your 3 facts. You said that you've had 3 different jobs. You
you.
led ballet at 60 years old, and you own a Blue Peter badge. Well, I think probably you might well have learnt ballet at 60 years old. I'm going to say you don't have a Blue Peter badge.
I do have a Blue Peter
Oh.
badge. It was a wonderful occasion where we changed all the school crossing patrol or lollipop signs, which were metal, and we were changing those to new materials. And so we donated them to the Blue Peter campaign at the time. So, yes, I'm very proud to say I am the owner of a Blue Peter badge. How did
So what's the
you do ballet?
I mean, everybody can start.
I love ballet, but I've got a feeling that there's not enough tutus and ornettes in the world at the moment to sort of, make me into Swan Lake or the Nutcracker. So that was my own truth. But the other ones, I do have 3 separate jobs at the moment, which is thick read, really.
Right. Well, but they sound, quite, take up a lot of your time. I think we're coming to another question now. Question 3 for everyone. I want to ask you all if you've got any family traditions that you absolutely have to stick by every year. It might be a journey route that you must make. It might be somewhere that you have to stop because you always stop there. Could even be perhaps a game that you've always played in the car. Heidi, I'll come to you first, as you were the last person I talked to.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a quick one. Yeah, every year we go down to Bourton-on-the-Water, which again is in Gloucestershire this time in the Cotswolds, and they switch on the Christmas tree, which actually is right in the middle of the River Ringrush, and it's so pretty. And we've been going down there for about 30 plus years, and it's a Christmas tradition in the first weekend in December, which kickstarts our festive traditions.
Sounds absolutely beautiful. Lee,
Well, we don't really have the tradition, but we do have one tradition that we do prior to Christmas, and that is that we all put money into a Christmas pudding mix and then make a wish, and that's done for on behalf of everybody around the world who's in our family.
well, that's lovely. And then Christmas Day, you see, you get whatever you put in the Christmas pudding. Yes,
It turns into a fight, but then everyone forgets about the money afterwards.
I'm sure. All right, who's next? Let's talk to Alan. Alan W.
Well, I told you a little while ago about my parents coming from London to Liverpool. In alternate years, of course, during our son's childhood, we went from Liverpool to London, this time by car, and the stopping over point was always in Cannock Chase. And if there was snow on the ground, the dogs were let out anyway, and there were two dachshunds. But dachshunds are rather sort of low in the undercarriage. And if they're running across snow or frosty ground, then the frost stuck on them underneath. And these two wire-haired dachshunds would come back absolutely smothered in icicles underneath, sticking on the ground and goodness knows what. And inevitably, they ruined the back seat of the car for the second half of the journey. But we never learned. We did it each year or each other year for quite a long while.
I know my dad always had wild-haired dachshunds. He had miniature wild-haired dachshunds.
Yes, I mean, in minutes too. They're lovely.
They were enchanting. Right, David, I think you're next.
Well, my family, my extended family, are all big fans of Strictly Come Dancing, and every year we have a little family sweepstake and all put in £10 each. So this Saturday, someone is going to win the whole pot. And I know it's not going to be me because my dancer went out very early, but someone's going to get an early Christmas present on Saturday night.
Do you know what any of the others have said?
I'm trying to remember who's still in. I think
I've been watching it intermittently, so I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure of the names. Never
I
mind.
think yeah, I
We will
think
know
Sarah
very
Hadland, one of my family, have put their money on her, and so I think they've got a good chance.
We've only got till tomorrow to wait to find that out. Alan H. Alan Hiscox, you're last in this question.
Yeah, as kids, we were in the back of the car at Christmas time, my brother and I, and we were always looking out the window, trying to see what people's Christmas decorations were like in their lounges with the curtains open. But often we would spot things in people's lounges with the curtains open. There was nothing to do with Christmas, but always makes me have a very sort of warm feeling in my heart seeing people's decorations up.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I was in London a couple of days ago looking at all the lights, and they were absolutely spectacular. Really beautiful. Right, thank you all very much indeed. Alan, we're going to be talking to you in a moment. And don't forget, we're going to soon be finding out who the lucky winner of our lovely Christmas hamper will be, courtesy of Gem Motoring Assist. But first, as I say, I'm going to talk to Alan Wakely, who is a transport historian, about the winter journeys that he remembers. And Alan, let's ask you first about your three answers. You played lacrosse for Cheshire. Your son is a port, I presume you mean drinking port enthusiast. And you were once interviewed for your last job by 16 nuns. I think I will say that it's the 16 nuns that was the false answer, yes?
No, unfortunately not.
Ah,
It was the lacrosse. I'm
Oh,
a sportsman. The bit about my girlfriend playing lacrosse was true. I've since married her and we've been together for a very long time now. But no, I'm a very poor sportsman. The nuns are real.
okay. Well, what was the job that you were being interviewed by 16 nuns? What on earth was that job for?
Administrator of their convent and indeed effectively CEO of the charities that they were involved with.
Right. How interesting. What an interesting job. Wow. Where was that? Where is it?
Based in Oxford then, although it's no longer there.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I've got to ask you some questions about looking back to, well, the 1950s, which I'm afraid I also remember. I mean, it always seemed in those days that there was snow, always snow at winter. Is that how you remember the 50s? in those days.
Yes, although the heaviest snow I remember was actually in May, and I wasn't going to talk about that now because it wasn't Christmas. And May 55, however, there was a snowfall in London, and a heavy one. But earlier on in that decade, it was the smogs, the London pea supers, which were a really serious hazard, frankly, for driving and to get around in general. He brought in,
Yes, go on.
and there was the Clean Air Act date from just after that, and it was the 52 smog that caused it. And during that fog, my little brother, who was only 4 at the time, was taken very seriously ill. We were in Croydon, well south of the middle of London at the time. An ambulance was called by the doctor, and even they couldn't get through easily because they didn't have blue lights with a bell in those days. And eventually it arrived. My grandmother had cut out the house number on a stencil and stuck it at the window with a bright light behind in the hope it could be seen from the road, but it
Was it?
could. And because he was so ill, he wasn't taken to the local hospital, but all the way out to Guy's in London.
Wow.
He did survive, but I remember that one very well.
Which was the really bad smog that we all talk about? Because I remember I was out that day and I was walking back up to my home from the Fulham Road, and
I tell you,
I couldn't see to cross from one side of the road to the other.
Oh.
It's out the 52 smog.
absolutely precisely, I can tell you that. December the 9th, 1952.
Yeah.
There's a very famous picture. It's copyright, I think, so it can't be shown here now, but it's one people may have seen. It's of a bus on Westminster Bridge. Although you couldn't tell it was on Westminster Bridge, there's so much fog. But you can see the front of this bus, and there's a figure in front of it. And this was the conductor. Now, half the Gem motorist readership won't even know what a bus conductor is, probably. It was the person who was on the back of the bus who took the fares, because the driver was in a separate cab at the front and couldn't on old buses like this one. And the man standing in front of the bus is the conductor, who's got off and was doing what they had to do in 1904, wave a red flag in order to make certain that the road was correct. The one thing to say related to road safety here, though, is that the bus driver in this picture, you can only just see the front of the bus, but it's there, has got his lights dipped. And regardless of the conditions, that's the thing to do, because the light in thick fog lights the side of the road. And if you can see the left-hand side of the road, you will go round the corners. If you've got your lights straight up, all you're doing is illuminating the fog, and you don't know where you are on the road.
That's a very good tip to remember. Has winter weather ever messed up any of your Christmas journeys?
Well, I remember one journey not that long ago when I was trying to bring some wine back for my son, the port enthusiast, from Crewe to where we are now in Cambridgeshire. And I thought it would be nice to go through the Peak District. And I rather got that wrong. I followed a lorry out from Cheadle up towards Belper. It turned towards Belper and I didn't want to. And by that time it was snowing really hard, although it hadn't been to start with. And I thought, when I get to the junction at the top with the main road from Buxton to Ashbourne, if I can't get out, I'm going to be stuck here for a very long time. Thank goodness there was no one on the road at that junction, and I did get right and down into Ashbourne. And then it was rain at the bottom again. But I was quite concerned about that one.
Yeah, that does sound very nasty.
It was a bit.
Can you share a few more interesting facts and figures about the UK road network in winter that we might find
Well,
very...
a couple of things that were worth saying. I've talked about fog. And one important thing, of course, is that fog warnings when they come up on motorways are not there for fun. They're serious. Fog ahead can be extremely dangerous, and you need to know it. Another thing that happens on roads, of course, is that they close because of snow. And it's amazing how many people go past road closed signs. The A939 is the extraordinary one, isn't it? That goes out regularly between Tomintoul and across the high pass set to the south in northwest Scotland, northeast Scotland, I beg its pardon, Aberdeenshire. But other roads flood. The A1101 floods regularly between Ely and Ipswich and Wisbech, I beg your pardon, I'm going in the wrong direction. No, between Ely and Wisbech, floods regularly and frequently. They've now got signs on main roads some distance away warning you. But no end of people pay no attention.
Man.
Here is a question of relying totally on the sat-nav when the sat-nav doesn't always, and this is very sophisticated, know everything.
I'm just wondering, where I live, it seems now we don't have the snow. Well, up north, obviously we do, but we don't seem to have the snow in the south as we did. Little bit the other day, but it didn't last. It's mostly lots of rain and flooding. Now, where I am, I'm quite lucky. So I tend to think, oh, I'm okay, there's no flooding around me, and I'll set off on a journey. It could be that just very few miles down the road, there is bad flooding, and I get caught up in it. How can I find out about sort of local flooding? Is there anywhere that will sort of tell me about that?
Well, there are Weather Watch websites that are available, but again, you are dependent on them being updated frequently and regularly, and they are not always. Last night I was travelling home, and all the roads around Ely were stuck, solid. I couldn't find out why, because I know the back routes I eventually got myself home. And I do know that James, our editor, was talking to me not long back about a very flooded evening near his home on the English-Welsh border, where again he got home because he knew the back roads and was lucky that they weren't flooded. But there was no way of finding out. It's something that does need more development or more updating. Certainly the technology now exists, but getting the information out faster would be something that would be a great improvement for winter drivers.
Let's hope those who are listening who could do that will take that on board. Alan, for the moment, thank you very much for your advice there. Very interesting talking to you. We'll see you again in a moment for another question. Now, we're going to give you a dry run for our hamper competition. It is a dry run. This is just, the winner of this is not, I'm afraid, going to win the Christmas hamper, but it's just fun. It's a dry run. All you need to do is watch this fabulous video, which was made a few years ago by the good motoring editor, James Luckhurst. You need to pay very close attention to it. And when you've seen it, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Here's the video.
Welcome to this GEM Motoring Assist video on the challenges of driving in winter conditions. And the winter doesn't get much more spectacular than this, does it? We're in Finland, where there's snow as far as the eye can see, and the temperature is several degrees below freezing. Of course, extreme winter conditions are something many of us have to deal with only very occasionally. But when the snow hits, it's guaranteed to bring the whole road network to a standstill. Anyone keen to perfect their driving skills in the winter really needs to get out there on the snow and ice to appreciate how the whole system of driving dynamics changes instantly. Watching a short video on the subject won't make experts of any of us. But what we can do when we have the advantage of all this empty space is to take a look at what can happen if we overdo it on a bend, or perhaps have to react suddenly to something that's occurred in front of us. It's all about time and space, and you really need plenty of both when you're on the road in winter. Stopping distances can increase up to 10-fold, grip on snow and ice is often greatly reduced, and if you are driving, it's vital that you do everything slowly. Plan ahead. Where are you likely to lose grip? Where might you be in danger of being hit by something else? And are you going into that bend too quickly? Let's turn our attention now to skidding, which is a major cause of concern for many drivers, especially in winter. And because prevention is better than cure, let's look at the steps we can take to ensure we don't get involved in a skid in the first place. In winter, you can greatly reduce your risk of skidding by being aware of changing road conditions and adjusting your driving. So steer more gently, brake more gently, accelerate more gently, avoid harsh movements, and slow down. Driving on snow and ice is a completely different and challenging experience. Okay, now it might be fine here in a sterile area as used by the Finnish police, but the reality is that driving on the open road in conditions like this bring drivers and other road users one step closer to trouble, however highly they rate themselves. Here's our checklist before any winter journey. Check all lights are in working order. Make sure your number plates are clearly visible from the front and rear. Check tyre pressures and check you have plenty of tread depth. Check that wiper blades are not worn or damaged. Clean the windows inside and out and wipe the lamp lenses and door mirrors. Keep a can of de-icer and an ice scraper in the car. De-icer can also be used to defrost doors and petrol cap locks. Carry a few extra items with you on winter journeys. Gloves, a blanket, a small shovel, a torch, and some cash could all prove very useful.
Well, rather than run the risk of something like that happening, if the forecast threatens snow or ice, it makes sense to reduce your risk, postpone your journey.
Right. Well, that's the video. I hope you were watching that very, very closely. It's quite a long video, and these are practice questions. This is not for the hamper. This is just a fun practice quiz. Right. Question 1. What was the weather like in the video? Wet, foggy, windy, or snowy? Question 2. What color car crashed into the snow bank? Was it yellow, white, brown, or mauve? I'll do those again for you. Question 1. What was the weather like in the video? Was it wet, foggy, windy, or snowy? And question 2. What color car crashed into the snowbank? Was it yellow, white, brown, or mauve? And we'll have an answer for you in a few moments when we get that sorted out, who the test winner is. But from then, I'm going to have another question that I'm going to ask to everybody. Question 4. And this is, have you ever had to work at Christmas? What were you doing and what was it like? Let's come to Alan. Alan Hiscox first.
Okay, yes. I mean, I haven't been in the police words many Christmas days, but being in the mounted police, used to take my horse out on Christmas Day and ride into the city of London, around all the lanes and old streets around there. And it was very Dickensian and very Christmas Carol-ish. And it was a really sort of heartwarming experience. And everybody said, Happy Christmas. And I said, Happy Christmas back. So yeah, talking to a copper on a horse on Christmas Day was really a thing.
Lovely. Lee, what about you? Were you working at Christmas and what was that like? What was the job?
Well, we had we're a 24-hour operation, obviously. The mother company called us this, but years ago I did work for a company called Australian Mutual Provident. I went in to do some Christmas cover, and although it was very empty in the office, it was a really good atmosphere, a real togetherness amongst the staff that were in, and I think that was something that I really enjoyed. It was a different perspective on work.
Yeah, lovely. Heidi, what about you?
Yes, well, I'm an ex-police officer as well. So, yeah, I worked every Christmas. And it was great on Christmas morning to see the children all out on the streets on their new toys. So, new bikes, new scooters, etc. I don't think you see that much now because, unfortunately, the PlayStations and gaming machines have taken over. But it was always great on Christmas morning to see the children excited and playing out with their new toys.
Alan Wakely, what were you doing on a Christmas when you worked?
Well over 50 years ago now, I spent a couple of Christmases working in a YMCA hostel, looking after people there. A lot of the residents in those days were students who'd gone home, but the ones who were staying for Christmas obviously needed looking after, and I did that. More recently, and indeed now in retirement, I'm a lay minister or a lay reader in the Church of England, attached to Ely Cathedral. And of course, quite a few things happen in places like Ely Cathedral at Christmas. So I'm involved with those as well. Hardly a job, but I do have duties, as it were, not just sitting there and watching it go on.
Ely Cathedral is very beautiful. It's a lovely place to be. And finally, David.
Well, I've never worked on Christmas Day, but I have worked around Christmas in a supermarket when I was a teenager. My job when I was in the sixth form, and I remember working on Christmas Eve. I much preferred to be on the trolleys. Collecting trolleys in the car park seemed a lot less stressful than having a huge queue of people with full shopping trolleys, and looking up from my till and seeing the queue going back almost to the far side of the supermarket. I didn't enjoy, but being on the trolleys was fine because the managers couldn't really see what you were doing, so you could get up to mischief without being caught.
Didn't you get lots of lovely Christmas treats handed out by people on Christmas Day?
I wish I could say that I did, but I don't remember that I did actually. Perhaps I should have been nicer to the customers.
I remember in my very early days when I was an Indian announcer for the BBC, and I worked on a Christmas Day. It was a completely different atmosphere. The BBC was almost empty, apart from the sort of the people who were like in our announcing department, and it was just lovely. Everybody was sort of very friendly and warm, and I liked it. I actually enjoy working on Christmas Day. I think it's enjoyable tremendously. Right. Well, thank you all very much for those questions. David, I'm going to stay with you. Let me remind you that David is the road test editor for Good Motoring magazine, and he's a freelance motoring journalist. David, what's on the motoring horizon for 2025?
Well, I think the biggest change is a shake-up to vehicle excise duty that's coming in April of 2025. And the electric cars, which until now have not had to pay, the owners have not had to pay car tax, those will now be subject to taxation from April onwards.
Isn't that going to rather sort of put people off getting into EVs, which is what we're supposed to be doing?
Well, I think actually it may have some effect, but for buying a new car, the difference in the cost is only going to be very small, because electric cars will only be paying in that first year. The owners will only have to pay £10. It's actually the changes to the other tax rates that are probably going to make the biggest difference, or are going to hit people in their pockets the most. So any car with emissions of 76 grams a kilometre of carbon dioxide or more, which is more or less everything on the market that isn't either an electric car or a very efficient plug-in hybrid, all of those cars, the tax rates for the first year are going to double. So that's going to make a significant difference, particularly for someone who is perhaps looking at a performance car or a big 4x4 or a luxury car. If someone's lucky enough to be looking at a car like that has emissions of 255 grams a kilometre or more, the tax bill for the first year is going up to £5,490.
That's a lot of money. David, quick advice for anyone looking for a new car bargain in 2025.
I think because of these changes, it makes sense to look at a car with low emissions, given that high emitting cars are going to have about several £1,000s on top of the actual price of the car is going to be taxation. I think it's also worth looking at several cars. Don't set your heart on one car. Make sure you go to a dealership and take a thorough look at 3 or 4 different cars and make it clear to the dealer that the price you pay is going to be a key factor in whatever decision you make as to which car you buy. And look out for any special offers and incentives, things like 0% finance, deposit contributions if you're buying on finance. All of those things help make a new car that bit more affordable.
Right, thank you. David, I didn't ask you what was the false answer to your question. You failed to organise a booze up in a brewery. You stayed in a caravan in the Arctic Circle in midwinter. I kind of feel you probably did that. And you have taken a bus across the south coast from east to west. You have or you haven't? Which is the
I
false
haven't
one?
ever taken a bus all the way from Kent to Cornwall, although my father has. So Mr. Motten Senior did it using his bus pass when he first got his bus pass. But no, I've never travelled across the country by bus.
I kind of believed you would have stayed in the Arctic Circle in a caravan. I think if we're lucky, we've just been told who the winner of our test quiz is. It's just come in. And the answer is Laura Grant. So well done, Laura. Very well done. Well, fingers crossed for the main quiz. Sadly, that was just a test quiz, but very well done. So you obviously sort of got your eyes on those videos, so you know what's coming up. Right, we're going to move on now to talk to Alan Hiscox from the British Horse Society. And this is going to lead very neatly into our hamper competition, because you'll need to watch a very short, very horsey video. And again, I'm going to ask you 2 questions about it, but that's in just a moment. Alan, hello. A few highlights, please, of your career on horseback. What a lovely career to have had.
Oh, it was amazing. And if I could push a button, I'd go right back to the start again. Being part of the Mounted Police in London was an incredible privilege. But I also managed to travel around the world as well. And I worked with the South African Mounted Police when they were preparing for the World Cup in 2010, which was an incredible experience. Working with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police over in Canada, that again was something very, very special. And then to top it all off, our display team, we toured with the Spanish Riding School from Vienna, when they were on tour in this country. So yes, some incredible memories.
I remember filming with the Spanish riding school once. That was quite a day. I enjoyed, and I didn't get the chance to ride any of the horses, but it was wonderful. Um, Give me some idea of what you look for in a horse when it's going to be a police horse and the kind of training that it needs.
Yeah, we used to get the horses on a 4-week trial. Obviously, the size was very important, and the type. Although an Irish Giraffe Cross Thoroughbred was probably the best, but we had some Dutch Warm Bloods and some Cell Francaise and Shire Crosses that did very well. But the whole trial process was actually seeing in the 4 weeks to see if the horse had the potential to make it as a police horse. Out in London, and then it went to a sort of a traffic light sort of stage where red was just minor desensitization. Then he went on to amber, which is a bit more, and then they finished off at the green stage when they were really ready to go out onto the streets of London and do the job of a police horse.
There's quite some training. Presumably, a horse that wasn't that highly strung was obviously necessary.
Well, yes. I mean, we'd find that out in the first 4 weeks. But what we're asking police horses to do is quite incredible when you consider they're flight animals, and that's something that drivers have to be aware of when they're approaching a horse. They still have these flight instincts, and even the best trained police horse will react to something. It might only be a flick of an ear or a movement of a muscle, but yes, the sort of the highly strung horses wouldn't have made that first 4 weeks.
And of course, we had that really nasty accident I think it was this year, wasn't it, when the horses in London were sort of freaked out by something and, threw their riders off and escaped. That was very unpleasant, wasn't it? Really nasty.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the household cavalry horses there. And yes, it could have been an awful lot worse. But a notice to everybody that even the well-trained cavalry horses may take sort of flight or look at something that they're unsure of. So once again, that whole thing about when you approach horses, whether it's a police horse or a cavalry horse or any horse, be aware that they are flight animals.
Is it true about breathing up a horse's nostrils? They always say that's a thing to do to sort of connect with them. Or is that just a.
Well, I can't say I tried it too often, but yeah, you just have to be careful that they actually don't decide to nip you as you're blowing up their nostrils. So I wouldn't put that down as a top training tip for horses, actually. But yeah, it was a Barbara Woodhouse thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I used to ride a lot at one time. I loved it. I used to ride polo ponies in Richmond Park. That was great.
Amazing.
Yeah, I did. I loved that. I'm going to ask you, did you do your fair share of ceremonial occasions? I mean, were you caught up in football crowds or unrest, which I think is probably the worst?
Yeah, I mean, the two ends of the spectrum there. Yes, ceremonial occasions, trooping the colour, state visits, state opening of parliaments. Yes, to be involved in that was a complete privilege. And then the following day, you could be at Chelsea or Tottenham or Wembley and standing in front of a crowd of thousands and just trying to watch the crowd dynamics and use your horse in a way that made sure that everybody was safe in the crowd. So yes, two ends of the spectrum there, both very, very challenging. But the stars of the show absolutely were the horses and how they would stand their grounds and not turn around and move away.
What sort of difference are you making in your current role with the British Horse Society? And what does that involve?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to inform, involve, guide, and persuade drivers how to pass horses safely. And I would say that the highway code changes that came in nearly 3 years ago, can you believe it, were a significant move to inform drivers how to pass. So giving specifics, the 10 miles an hour maximum and the 2 meters distance when you pass horses, telling drivers about the way that the horses can hear, their eyes, they can see everything from right the way around. That's why we tell kids not to walk behind horses, and they are flight animals. So that 10 miles an hour and 2 meters distance is really crucial and part of that in the highway code. The fact that not many drivers know about that, and we do surveys at Carfest and Goodwood Revival, and we're finding that a very, very small percentage, they know something about the highway code changes, but when we talk about the specifics with horses, so I would say, we're really trying to get into drivers' information and involving them how to pass us safely.
Are you still riding?
I am. In fact, James Luckhurst, who is on this call, I do believe, I rode with him a couple of weeks ago, and we had a very, very nice ride along a beach in France. So, yeah, incredible.
Wonderful. I love riding on beaches. And I was going to ask you something else. Do you have your own horse?
Interestingly, I've never had my own horse. Working in the police, bit like a busman's holiday, but I will still ride anybody that says, "Do you fancy coming off on a ride?" So yeah, and every time I do go on a horse, I think, "Hang on, I should be doing a little bit more of this."
I think I'm going to have a word with James about getting a ride on that beach. Alan, I didn't ask you about your questions. You love riding, you said. Well, that's obviously true. Played in a punk band, and you love cricket. I'm going to say you're not a lover of cricket.
Actually, it's a punk band.
Right. Okay. Got that one. Well, I wonder how many of our viewers got all those questions and false answers correct themselves. Right. We're going to move on now to thank you very much for talking us, because it brings us very nicely to our hamper competition. Now, we're going to show you a short video that was recently added to the Blue Light Aware collection. And it was made primarily to help horse riders on the road if they're passed by an emergency vehicle. So you've got to watch this video very, very carefully, and then I'm going to ask you two questions. This is the real one. This is for the Christmas hamper. Our back office team will process the correct winners, the correct entries, and we'll use a random number generator to find the winner out of all those correct entries. So as before, please pay very close attention to this video, and I'll ask you two questions when it's over.
That siren's getting closer. What's the best way of keeping people and horses safe?
Emergency drivers will always plan to cancel their sirens when they spot horses and riders on the road ahead. High-vis for you and your horse gives them the best chance of seeing you early and helps them keep you safe. We know that horses can be unpredictable in their reactions to large vehicles and loud noises. If you can, move off the road into a gateway or side entrance. If this isn't possible, try to stand still and reassure your horse as the emergency vehicle goes by. Remember, some emergency vehicles will be bigger and wider than you expect. Do remain vigilant, as there may well be more than one vehicle responding to the emergency. Thank you for your help.
Right. Here are the questions. I hope you were watching that very, very carefully. I'll run them past you twice. First question, in the video, how many horses did the fire engine go past? Was it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Second question, according to the video, what gives a horse and rider the best chance of being seen by an emergency driver? High vis for horse and rider, flashing light on rider's helmet, camouflage blankets, or illuminated horseshoes? I'll run those past you again. First question, in the video, how many horses did the fire engine go past? Was it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Second question, according to the video, what gives a horse and rider the best chance of being seen by an emergency driver? High vis for horse and rider, flashing light on a rider's helmet, camouflage blankets, or illuminated horseshoes? Right, well, we'll be choosing a winner in just a moment. While we're waiting for that winner to be sorted out, I've got one last question for everybody. We don't have a lot of time, everyone, so let's have a nice, fairly quick answer. Right, if you could have any present at all under the Christmas tree this year, what would it be and why? Alan Wakely, first of all.
A pair of walking boots, because I'm getting old and I need to go walking and keep exercise going, and I want ones that don't give me blisters.
Heidi.
My present wouldn't be under the tree, it would be on top of the tree, and it would be a dove of peace, to bring peace to the world.
Lee.
In the 1980s, I owned a very, very flash leather box jacket, and I'd like another one under the tree, but obviously it's going to have to be a few sizes larger.
David?
I would like a motorbike and my full bike license, because I've done my compulsory basic training, but I'd really like to have a proper motorbike.
And Alan Hiscox.
Yeah, a magic wand, and I could then sprinkle fairy dust over all drivers so that they would pass horses safely at a maximum of 10 miles an hour and a 2 meters distance.
Right. Well, I think I'm going to go along with Heidi, actually. I agree with that dove on the top of the Christmas tree. I'd like to sort of put out a great wish for some peace around the world, which would be wonderful. Some really nice, interesting answers from all our guests. I don't know if we got a result yet. We're waiting for a result. We have got a result. Fantastic. Brings us to the moment that we've all been waiting for. And the competition winner will shortly receive a fabulous Christmas hamper. So the winner is Andrew Johnson. Well done, Andrew. Absolutely fantastic. Right. Well, we're going to find out all your details and where you are and everything. We're going to make quite sure that you get that Christmas hamper in due course and in time for Christmas. Right, as soon as it's possible. Well, all I could say is we've sadly come to an end of our webinar. It's been a bit disjointed at times. I hope you've enjoyed it and you found it fun, whoever has been watching and enjoyed playing the quiz. Congratulations to our test winner and our final winner, Andrew Johnson. That's great fun. I don't know what's in the hamper, but I'm sure it's absolutely delicious. My thanks to all my lovely guests for all their stories and memories. It was really nice to have you on the program today. Wish you all a very happy Christmas. A big thank you to Neil Barrett for doing all the technical production and, of course, for James Luckhurst for bringing it all together. So just time for me to say have a wonderful Christmas, everyone. Very safe driving on the roads in 2025. Look forward to seeing you next year. For now, from me, Val Singleton, goodbye. Happy Christmas.